Hi, this is Laurie Laizure from Interior Design Community, and this is our podcast to the trade. Of course, I've got always Nile Johnson, our amazing sidekick here. Hi, Nile.
Hi.
How are the kiddos? Doing
Yes, they're good.
good. That's a
They're
good
good. Yes. Yes.
question. I love it. I love it. And we have our guest I just love, love, love him. John McClain. Tell me a little bit about you. I'm sure actually most of our audience knows who you are, but
Yeah.
I still let's go in and say who you are, and what your business is.
Yeah, I'm just like everyone else. And at heart, I'm an interior designer. And that's how I started everything that I do now. And it was the love of changing and revising and renovating homes. And my family did it for a living. And I just would follow along. And I would love to watch like my grandfather, my uncle, and my dad build houses from the ground up. And it was just like, wait, what? You can do that? And then my mom would be like, why do you want to go? Like, I was like 8 years old. Why do you want to go and hang out at the job site? I'm like, because I love it. I love what they're doing. And then later on, I realized I could do that on my own. And then after that, I had a little one episode on an HGTV show. And then people started calling. They were like, can you come out to my house? And I'm like, wait, you mean paint? Hello, paint? And I was like, okay, like this can be a career. Like you can love something and also get paid to do it, which is so eye opening. And so then I just was like, I've always been an entrepreneurial spirit at heart. And I take risks, but they're very calculated risks. And so I started very slowly working, of course, for friends and family. And then once I got the HGTV thing, it turned into a bigger platform, of course. And then I started to branch out and do different states and things. And I actually started my own official, quote unquote, business. And I've not looked back since. And everything that I do now pivots off of all of the mistakes I made, the good decisions I made, the bad decisions I made, the great clients I had, the bad clients I had. And then I started having a lot of other fellow designers ask me questions and can you give me 30 minutes here and 10 minutes there to help me figure out the solution? Because they saw that I was successful in other areas. And I was like, sure, but I'm not a mentor. I'm not a coach. No, I just want to ask you questions. And then I was like, wait a minute. So many people are asking for this. Let's kind of bottle it up the best way I can and give it to the world. So that has moved into my coaching and I have online courses and I have a coffee table book and I've had my own product line. So I've really done almost everything there could be done in this wonderful industry that we have. And now I'm just loving sharing the information with other designers, in addition to, of course, still designing. Because what I find, and I think you might agree with this to some extent, I love someone who can teach someone else something that they're doing versus someone who will try to teach someone something who's never done what they're trying to teach.
That's
So
anything that going around.
yeah. And anything that I teach, I've tried myself and it's been trial and error, but I'm in a great place. I love our community and I love what you do for the community as well. So thanks for having me on.
That just saying that it really, I know I'm missing out because you were maybe coming to High Point and we were going to have you on a panel because we really think the same thing. I remember one day I was just like searching Facebook and I was right after COVID. So like right around, I want to say it was like 2021-ish. So I think that I saw in one day like 8 different coaches that I'd never heard before, like new people. And not that I'm like a gatekeeper, because I'm absolutely not. I love new people coming into the industry and doing interesting things. I just was noticing like a pay for play situation from people who literally have no industry background at all in our industry. So I was a little bit taken aback and thought we need to maybe have some of these coaches vetted. And also at the same time, I was getting a lot of messages from designers who were unhappy with coaches that they had tried and were like locked into these really intense contracts and feeling like they're not getting what the value of the expense that they were spending. And it just made me feel like there are some amazing coaches and I know a lot of them that are really great, but there's also some sort of a layer of predatory practices that might be happening out in the interior design industry. And I'm hearing some really crazy stuff. And how can we protect interior designers from such a huge investment when you're making that decision to hire a coach? It's like for even an entry level course or something like that, that's marketing dollars that they could be spending anywhere else, like a month. anything else, an ad, doing an event at a local country club, whatever.
Hmm.
There's only so much money to be had. So it needs that investment. We want to make sure that the designers are making those decisions really wisely and really thinking about it and vetting it. And unfortunately, I also think you have to think from a coach's perspective. You're asking the coach, give me the people that have used your coaching. You don't really know who those people are. They could be their best friend, or you really don't know who they are. And so you don't know if that they're not certainly not going to give you anybody that is upset with them. They're only going to give you people that love them. That's always tricky too. And then there's another weird layer in this industry that I found from very early on is like people are a little afraid to say things about people, especially if the coach has like a reputation, or maybe they're powerful in the industry. So they think, oh, that coach might say something bad about me if I say something bad about them. And I don't want to say something bad about them that's going to make them think badly about me. So I'm just going to say they were wonderful, even though they were terrible. You know what I mean? That kind of thing happens.
No, you give them a
More
cocktail and
than
they'll
you
tell you. Give them a cocktail and they'll tell you everything.
That's true. The cocktails are at High Point are
Well,
a
it's funny
surefire
you
way to
say
get
that
around that.
because it's funny, Lori, because I was apprehensive to put that hat on that said coach, right? Because I
Sure.
know that I never thought of myself as that. I always thought of myself as just helping other people. And that's truly, I know it sounds cheesy, but that is truly where it came from for me because I was juggling helping people with my courses and coaching as well as running my business when I first started. Now I've delegated a lot of that off, but as the CEO and creative director of my company, John McClain Design, I still had those obligations. And so for me, I was like, okay, I don't really want to say I'm a coach because number one, that has meaning behind it. And number two, it's starting to get a little cloudy as far as what a coach does and what we provide for people and all that stuff. But slowly I came to understand like I am giving valuable information. And I almost love the term like advisor or mentor. I don't even know what the best term. Sometimes I'll just say a business design business advisor to people because
Right.
I want them to know that I'm helping them out. But not to say though that the people who don't have quote unquote industry training necessarily, that some of that stuff can't bleed over. Because if you had experience coaching someone on, let's say, business startup, that's going to be similar with the design. You can talk about business startup, but where it gets a little foggy for me is for someone who is saying, oh, yeah, here's how you should market to your ideal client in the design industry when that particular person has never really had an ideal client in the design industry and knows exactly how to find that person. So for me, there's a lot of gray areas that I feel don't at all cross over. And then there's some very clear black and white areas that are like, nope, that is not something that someone who has not been in the industry should be teaching to people. And that's just my opinion. That's just
I
my
no, it's my opinion too. I think that personally I have taught people a lot of different things, but I don't do coaching at all. I don't do mentorship at all. How because we started as a community and that whole point is for free community. So it would be very, I don't know, just classless of me to start offering classes or coaching or things like that, I thought. And I really believe in like sharing ideas and stuff like that. But I think it's important to have somebody who is dedicated to helping your business, especially like there's these like roadblock parts of a design business. I think in the very beginning, obviously, people are like, they're going from a designer working for someone else now to working for themselves. There's just a million business side problems that they need to conquer. And that's a really important time to maybe have a mentor in that space. And then there's also like you're 5 years into that business and now you're thinking like, I want to do more than just have a successful design business. What do I do here? And then again, like you're doing more, but then now you're, how do I delegate? How do I build this beyond now that I've gotten this bigger thing? How do I learn all the tools to make sure that I can delegate properly and build for succession or expansion? You know what I mean? So there's, I think, three really important parts of your any design career where you would need more than just like a helpful phone call from a friend. And that's why we need to rely on really quality coaching or mentorship or business strategy from people who have been there, done that, or have that specific expertise that can really get you to where you go. But the flip side of that, I've seen like really bad things happen. Like I've been like held people who cried, who lost thousands of dollars with coaches and felt like they got nothing from it.
You know,
Scary part of it.
the way this came about for me was, and if anyone's interested, they can go to my podcast and listen to the very first episode. It's called, my podcast is The Designer Within. In the first episode, I literally tell people why I am doing this podcast, why I'm in this. And it really just came down to the fact of I did not have an agreement with my first client. And I literally almost lost my marriage, my house, my everything, because this client had literally took over and was running the show. And at the end of that, it ends with I had to deliver my furniture with an armed security guard to this client's home, because that's how crazy this situation. I know now. That's how
Yeah.
crazy this situation became. And I was like, nope, never again will I go through this. And never again, as long as I'm living, will anybody else that I know in this industry will have this happen. What happened to me. And it was just literally almost lost every single thing that I had. And that's the basis that I build everything on because of that.
Yeah. And that's actually a unique story. I've heard that.
Sadly,
I've heard that story from numerous designers who in the beginning didn't know they needed a contract, just didn't know that you're dealing with such a power imbalance when you talk about a 1% client, or there's just, it's an unacknowledged thing. We're dealing with people who have a heck of a lot more money than we do, for lawyers, for litigation. And how do we work? And the contract is the only thing standing to protect a designer between that and just royally getting screwed and losing everything, like you said.
this client called me and the client said, I'm going to sue you for every single penny you have. And I was like, good luck with that, because I ain't got nothing. Like, I'm broke right now. I'm Brandon. I'm a young, I'm a little baby designer.
I will sue for you every future dollar then. They just
But
like,
it's scary to hear that. But it's scary to hear that. And I hear horror stories now too from people I put $500,000 in product on my credit card and the client canceled the transaction. All these stupid little things that people feel they can do to manipulate a kind-hearted, hardworking interior designer. It frankly pisses me off. And it's so annoying to me that we fall prey just because someone has money, but they don't have the morals and the ethics and the values that we have for our own self. And so I now base everything on what I call the golden thread of values. And it literally is something that I want this thread to weave into that perfect client and the tradespeople that we work with and the businesses that we partner with and the products that we give out to on our social media. Everything we do now has that golden thread of values sewn through it, so that I know if that person I'm working with has passed this test that I've given them on the upfront before we started working together, then we're going to be pretty much okay. Of course, there's issues along the way, but if the foundation and the basis is there, and I know that my values are being recognized and received and appreciated by them and vice versa, then it will be a good working relationship. Because what happens the older you get, life's too short. You realize I don't need no amount of money, no big house, no big project. This was a 20,000 square foot home, by the way, that I was talking about. So see, I was lured by the big house, the magazines and the AD, but who cares if you have no home to go to for yourself at the end of the day? And I just find that my definition of what a successful project is and what a successful life is and what a successful business is has really evolved over the years. And money is not the predominant factor for me when it comes to that.
I agree with that 100%. And I had even just in starting interior design community, in the beginning, I was like, this is just a safe space and I can't police anybody, what they say. And then later on, as I've done it now 12 years, sometimes I'm just like, you're a jerk, you're out. My band hammer has gotten a lot more testy, because I'm just like, I know if I don't weed out the people who are problem starters or are miserable and just want to create problems for other people, that what I'm doing is allowing those voices to take over, and then no one else can. And I'm sure you're going to find the same thing with your own community that you're building with. It's just, you have to weed out these people that have not the same morals you do, not the same values, and really just want to start issues. And it's easier. I know it's life is so short. You wonder why anybody would want to be that miserable.
Seriously, I know.
What I mean?
And the thing is now I've been a designer for 15 years. I had another career before that in advertising and sales. But for me, the older I get, the more I just want to be like, okay, no, this isn't going to work. And I'm very, even with design clients, I say on our very first consultation, when we're in the room together, I say, after this hour and a half or so that we spend together, if there's no synergy or chemistry, or if we're not aligning in all the ways that I feel, then I'm not going to waste either one of our time and move forward with something that is not going to work out. So this is
Yeah.
as much an interview for me as it is for them when we go to do that. And that was the switch that flipped for me, because I know when you're just starting out, most designers, and now you can probably agree to this, you take whomever, right? You're like, oh, give me, if you have a
Yeah.
paycheck and a house, I will take it. You want to be a little more selective as you move along in your career. And that's where, again, that was eye-opening to me to know that I could say no to
Yeah.
a client, not just them saying no to me, or I could cancel the agreement, not just them canceling the agreement, or I could say, no, we're not going to do this because it is my business.
And
And
your
with
time and
all
you know who
that,
said that? Someone else that we interviewed, Nile. Do you remember when we had not interviewed Shannon Jem? She had said something that I thought was really interesting. She's, you know what? When you don't have that chemistry, you don't want to also rob the client of having that great chemistry with someone either. I mean, this is their house and this is a process that should be joyful for them. And
first
if
point,
it's
yeah.
not a good fit, not just for me, you don't want someone that you don't like designing your house or doesn't like you designing your house. That's not a fun thing. So it's robbing them too of the opportunity to have someone that might be a better fit for them. And I had years ago, Mitzi Beach, who we also interviewed, she was like, 80% of the people out there in the world can just be swayed, but 10% will love you. Like you have that instant connection, and 10% you just don't. You just meet that. And we've all had those moments where you meet someone and you're like, I don't like them and they really probably don't like me. You know what I mean? Like, and you just
And
have to
that's
trust your
okay.
gut to say, this is okay. That, that and it's nothing about you. It's just that there's that chemistry thing that just comes up that when I met you, I really like instantly liked you.
Thanks.
But there are lots of designers I've met that I'm like, they, I could tell they don't really care for me and I don't really probably care for them. Like, it's just, you can't be everybody's cup of tea and that's okay.
No,
Yeah.
I tell clients like, you know what? I'm going to see your bra on the floor, your dirty underwear from the night. Like, I'm going to be all up in your business. So let's just put this on the table right now that we're going to be married for 6 months or a year or whatever, how long this project is going to take. So let's just get all that on the upfront. And then by doing that, even that's a test for me. So even and I literally say that. So even when I say that, if they're like, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, you need to go away.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Or if they laugh and go along with it, I'm like, okay, you're my people. You get silly, and I want us to really come together. Because one word that I use and has also changed everything is because, let me preface this by saying, I think, and maybe now this has happened to you too, I think that a lot of consumers feel that we're going to be design dictators. We're going to come in and say, no, no. And we do to a certain extent. Like, we want to give our expert opinion, but I let them know that this is a partnership. And once I said the word partnership, that we are literally coming together to solve the problem for you, the client, then that really dropped their guard and let them know that we're not just going to say, these are our rules. You have to do exactly what we say. I'm open to bending because, frankly, sometimes a client has given me a better idea than I had before. And I'm open and I'm honest about that. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? That would be a good idea to take that wall down or to open up that room or whatever. And if we're opening to listening to that and truly making a partnership out of it instead of always trying to get our way, then I think it really just becomes a more successful project. They're going to refer you more. And if it's really ugly, you know what? I'm like, I can't see it from my house. So you just go ahead and put it in your house. That's fine with me. It's no big deal. So let's just do that.
I love it. I love it. And you're just like, I won't photograph that section.
Yeah. Or I'll just bring in when I used to have a retail store when I started, which was like a great calling card for my business, but also it was great because I had furniture to actually bring in for staging photo shoots. I'm like, oh, they went with that.
Nice.
They went with grandma's coffee table, and they knew I hated it. So let me bring a new one in, and I would just put that in the space and photograph it that way.
Did you ever sell because of that? Did you ever get somebody who's
Yes,
like,
they would
wait a
keep
minute,
it. Yes,
this actually looked good?
yes, yes. Because inevitably, if it's two spouses, one hates it, one loves it, and then the other one is just giving in to the other one because they don't want to annoy them. And yeah, once it's in the spot, they're like, "Oh my god, that does look better." I'm like, "Yeah, it does."
Mhm. I wonder who would have suggested that. I
Oh,
don't.
no.
You've done so many things, and I always am such awe of like how you fit it all in. You must be delegating quite a bit at this point. How did that process work for you as you started to take more aspects of writing the book, then doing coaching? Like, how did you navigate that?
Even just from the point of when I expanded so I started in Florida and then moved to the West Coast to open up an office here where I'm now. And even when I did that, I knew that I could not physically be in both places, right? It just can't happen. So I was like, let me set this up to make sure that my business continues to run not only smoothly and profitably, but the way that I would want it to run. And what I did, this was way before coaching and anything like that. This was way before I even put anything out into the world. I sat down and I was like, okay, I need to make a good hire. I need to make a hire for someone who is going to be the other me, quote unquote, on the other coast. And I mentored that person for about a year and a half. And literally, if I went to the bank, they would go with me. Anywhere I went, they would go with me. And she really became another mini me. I'm like, okay, great. She's hearing how I'm answering the questions. She's hearing how I'm reacting to this problem or with this vendor. And then that was great. On top of that, I started to write down literally everything that I did on a client's project and all the processes, and not just, oh, the client calls and then we move to the consultation. No, like what happens are one of those 25 steps between between the minute they call, how do we handle that discovery call? What do we say on it? What do we not want to say? What do we want to know? And I even wrote like little scripts the way, and I said, of course, change it on your own, what to make it sound like you. But I set up my business like a franchise. And when I did that, I learned I didn't have to be anywhere. Like even at one point, my admin was doing consultation, discovery calls, I should say, and he was blowing it out of the water on the discovery calls because he was following the script that I had written and the process that I had down for that. And he was listening to other designers in my office do those discovery calls. And I started just pulling things away. I would make a list too of what I liked doing and what I didn't like doing. And I would start delegating the hell out of those things I did not like doing. And everybody
Smart.
else started to get those. And whether it was people on my team or people out 1099 contract employees, whatever, or software like that, whatever I could find to take that task away from me because it was tedious or boring, or I just frankly hated it, then I would do that. And then it allowed me to change my title from principal designer to CEO/creative director. And I know that sounds silly. And some people might think, oh, you did that for an ego. And it literally had nothing to do with that. I did it because I wanted my clients to know that John McClain was not going to be on every consultation in the middle of Florida every single time, but I could be, but not guaranteed. But that one of my team members was going to be there. And then I was overseeing the company as the leader of the company. And that title change, Laura, it made the biggest difference in how people perceived me. They never even expected to speak with me when they called, and they never even expected that I would come out to their project. And it was just, if I did, it was a bonus, right? They're like, oh my God, hey, you're here. I didn't know you were going to come. And so I was able to then start focusing on other endeavors like my coffee table book and then turning things into coaching. And then I did, like I said, my product line. And so all the things that I had been dreaming about for years and just kept putting on the back burner because I was starting to delegate and put a system in place for that, then I could truly focus on that. Everybody needs what I call dreaming, your dream time. You need some dream time. You need some dream time every day. And you have to grab that dream time and start just thinking like, what would I want to do with my business? What would I want to do to grow my company? What would I want to do to better myself and my team and whatever? That dream time can turn into reality time if you start to put a plan in place to do that. But again, if you're one person, you just can't do it all. And you have to start to delegate in some form or fashion. And whether you're a solopreneur and you're like, oh my God, I can't delegate, you sure can. You can delegate with software. You can delegate with automatic responses on your emails to not reply every single time. You can delegate with, again, a contract employee. So there's so many things that you could take off your plate that I'm afraid our ego gets in the way sometimes as designers and business owners where we're like, oh, no one could do that as well as me. I can tell you, I have gone into projects for the photo shoot And this is no lie. And I'm like, wow, I don't ever remember seeing any of this stuff. This is beautiful. And I'd not even, I had not picked out one thing, but it was as good or better as what I would have chosen because I had trained my lead designer and delegated to her. And then also allowed her to work autonomously on her own without me saying, oh, every nitpicky little thing. So I think there's a fine line you have to find. You can't let, someone run your business who doesn't know how to run it. But also when you delegate wholly and let them make the mistakes. And then they're going to remember those mistakes down the road when that problem arises again. And they're going to appreciate the fact that you actually let them do their job and didn't interfere every single time.
Now you have said that you have this process and you wrote everything down that you did. Is that before it became the coaching, is that sort of what allowed you to do that, the coaching? It allowed you to do, because I know you have great collateral materials. I've heard
Well,
wonderful things about it. So
I do, but I'm really big on that. I'm really big on not just saying when I
it's
coach
not just
some
like you going, this is what you should do. And this is what you, no,
no.
there's stuff that you can hash.
Literally, when it started, when I drove away from that client's home that screwed me over, and had the armed security guard, and I pulled over, started crying. Like I was crying my eyes out because not because I was scared or afraid, because I was relieved of this horrible 6-month situation was behind me. And as I was drying my tears and started to drive, I had a 2-hour drive home. I started thinking about all the things that I did wrong. And even at that final thing where the client was there and I hadn't seen the client in a long time in person, and we shook hands and the client said, John, I don't even know how it got to this point. I'm like, yeah, first of all, you do know how it got to this point because you're a
You.
jerk. Yeah. Second of all I said was, I know exactly how it got to this point. And what I was meaning was, it was me. It was my fault. I was pointing the finger back at me because I didn't have those things in place. So on that 2-hour drive home from this horrible situation, it was finally over. I was recording it in my phone saying, okay, here's what I want to do. I was writing down notes. I was coming up with all the things that I did incorrectly and then that I would never do again. So that was the first sort of like form of a process that I would start to create. And then, yes, I moved that into an actual formal, we have 18 steps that we follow religiously. It's literally, I never, ever have to wonder about how we start a project and how we end a project and what's the in-between parts look like. And neither does a client. So we're not scrambling every time a client calls. If it's a decorating only project, we move them into this funnel. If it's a renovation project, we move them into this funnel. So it's very cut and dry and it's very easy once you have it. But yeah, I'm really big on giving those out. And so I give all of my SOPs out in my program. I give all of my processes out, all of my how we work documents, my downloads, my proposal, every single thing that I know that someone would need to take the words and put them into action. I want them to have that. And I've even had people say like,
even the scripts and the calls and
everything.
I know.
Even recordings. I just did something and my studios don't even know about this, but I recorded an entire, because I normally don't do the consultations myself in person, but I was like, I want to do this. So I did a consultation in person and I actually put my phone in my jacket pocket. And so I recorded an hour and a half consultation with a client. Not, I'm going to repeat her words, but I want people to hear how I handled that actual consultation. And so it's like a fly on the wall because everyone asks me all the time, can you just walk through this and show me that? And of course I can, but nothing is better than actually hearing a live in-home consultation happening and how you approach it and what you do to.
I love that. That's genius. That's really, I don't know anybody else is offering that at all.
It was
So
fun. It was
that's
fun.
amazing. That's so great. And did you see that there's that, I don't know if you saw on TikTok, there's that thing called the Plod thing that you can literally like, you can put it on the back of your phone and it's like an AI summary. So it's like a lot of kids take it to class. And if
Oh,
you're in a class, it basically makes an AI summary of everything that's said in a meeting, in an in-person meeting. And it gives
wow.
you, spits out the summary. And I'm like, every interior designer needs that because number one, like it's literally recording everything that's said and creating a like
Oh,
script of everything that's being said. But so
hmm.
you could look and critique what you've done, but it also, you can spit out a summary with action item to do
Oh my
at
God.
the end, and it just does it automatic. AI is so crazy.
It
So
really
crazy
is.
that
It
stuff is
really is.
exactly, and they're really good. There's an AI summary that I'm putting on right now for this Zoom, and what I do with that is I'll take it, and I will also take the YouTube transcript, and I'll throw those both into ChatGPT to create a blog post and to create a YouTube summary with like little breakouts of when things happen, so that it just saves me so much. If I've sat there and rewatched the video for an hour and wrote down like at 57 minutes, you said this, and I don't have time for that. So,
No, no.
these are things we can all do. Use it. And you're so good at this. Like I'm probably of every designer I've ever met, ever. And I've met thousands and thousands of designers. I think your handle on tech is really advanced and you're using it in ways that can really just make your life easier. And I want to give you a lot of props for that because it's a difficult thing to do, to adopt it and really bring it into the business and start using it for your standard operating procedures. Like it's one thing to say, oh, that's good. And I tested that tool, but it's different when you're actually implementing it.
And you're seeing all of thank you for that. And I do love technology. And I think it's actually been a game changer for us because even back when as simple as Slack, right? We all know what Slack is for the most part. I'm sure everyone knows what it is now, but we were early adopters of that. And by having an office in two different places during COVID, for instance, we were able to actually complete an entire project. Basically, we all communicated on Slack and we were just like going back and forth. And it was this very intense process, but we did a 6,000 or 5,000 something square foot home in 4 days because we were all we were laser focused on, we knew we were working on that one project and we knew that was what we had to complete during that time. Everybody, all 5 team members were working together and we were communicating in Slack and what do you think about this? And And then we would do a quick Zoom call and whatever. So yeah, I love technology. I think that a lot of people don't have time to figure out what works best for them because they are so busy working on all the other stuff in their business. And I love being able to be that guinea pig and say, well, that one sucks, or that one's really good, or this one might be better for you, for your personality, because you like this X, Y, and Z. But yeah, I use it all from the minute calls up until we're finished. Everything has technology somewhere in there, starting with as simple as a scheduling software, Acuity or Calendly or whatever someone wants to use. Even that, think at the time that you would say if someone just went to your website, and even by the way, if someone calls us, we still send them to our website to book the consultation, the paid consultation, because they can do the questionnaire, they can pay for the consultation, they can choose a date on the calendar with the office team member that they're going to meet with. Nobody has to go like, oh, are you available here? It's just so easy. And then they get follow-ups and then they get tomorrow's your consultation. Here is an investment guide we want to review with you tomorrow. So please pull this up or we can bring one a copy with us if you want. So it's just, I think the biggest thing in dealing with clients is handling expectations and managing those expectations to where that they don't just start running off into left field with their own ideas. But if you're in charge of it and you guide them through gently and say, here's the process for this, and using technology to do that has been, a total game changer for me. And I'm still every day. And again, if I had not changed my title to CEO and creative director and was still principal designer, for me personally, I would not have had time to play around and try out all this new fun stuff. And I even have a whole entire course of technology for designers for their business because I want them to be able to at least explore it and see what works for them. Now, the people who don't even have a website, that's a whole other category of people.
Yeah.
That's a whole different person.
That's a whole different person. You're like, my other thing is, do you have Google My Business? Because that is one that I'm like, it's free. You need it. It's like Yellow Pages.
Easy peasy.
90% of all search happens on Google. And you're not on Google My Business or Meta Business or whatever it's called now. But no, you have to have it. You absolutely have to have it.
It's the lowest barrier to entry for any business right now.
Yeah. But I can tell you how many times I've beat that drum. And sometimes I feel like I just repeat it and repeat it and repeat. Because I'm like, and every time I repeat it, people are like, what? I've never heard of it. And you're like, no.
Back to the drawing board.
Yeah. And get reviews there, not on House. Please.
The reviews there are great. Yeah. And one thing I have trouble with that is, again, continuing this whole learning curve is like when I moved. So I'm moving my office from Florida to here, like the headquarters, so to speak. Google really just got really confusing. They were like, okay, you're closing yet? I'm like, no, that's not. We're
closing.
Still having clients.
New location.
It was, and I'm still battling with them. They literally removed my listing saying that I was trying to deceiving content or whatever. And I'm like, oh no, Google, please don't do this. So it's so easy and cut and dry.
Yeah.
But yeah, so technology is not without its faults is the point of that. You have to stay on top of it and you have to monitor it and
I know
tweak
Google's
it.
actually terrible at that whole thing because they've changed everything a million times. They've changed the name of that a million times
They
and
have.
changed
Yes.
the process a million times. But I will tell you a cool tip is if you pay for ads and you do any little services, they give you a rep. So getting a rep is a game changer at Meta. It really
That's
is. Like
interesting.
paying a little bit of more money and then getting somebody that you can speak to like legitimately from the company. They will do things like even getting Instagram, like if you're paying the bigger amount to get the Instagram check mark on Instagram,
Yeah, the
you can get
verification.
a rep that will, do identity theft protection. So if your account ever gets stolen, they'll get it back for you. Things like that that are like I've seen so many designers, like major designers lose their accounts before, lose their Facebook business page, lose their Instagrams, like
Terrible.
without the double authentication. They
Yeah.
use your
Yeah.
account to protect your
Yeah.
account. And it's getting better. Like Apple's getting better about it too with having keymaster type programs so that you can just put your finger on your keyboard to get in and to any website now. Better, more encrypted passwords and things like that, which are going to be better. But it's always forgetting them and no forgetting
Well,
where they are and that kind of thing too.
thankfully my husband works for a cybersecurity company. So
Oh, that's awesome.
we were like, we're like, I'm like, oh my God, what else do you need for me to get it? I'm just trying to check the weather for God's sake. Like, we need a
I know.
fingerprint and a blood test.
Yes. Well, I want to also hear about the book
Yeah.
because you said you did that without an agent, so how did that process come to be for you?
I've never really followed a traditional process with anything in my life, it seems. So it started with me telling my husband, which is now I'm learning is like, oh, I gotta be careful what I say. I just said, hey, I think I want to do a coffee table book one day. And he was like, okay, let's figure this out. And I was like, "Oh, okay." So he literally was the catalyst in that. He started reaching out to publishers and in different parts of the country and just trying to get a feel for what they were looking for and if they're open to accepting new book offers and so forth. So he started getting those contacts with the publishers. And then what I did was write an entire synopsis, of course, of what I wanted the book to be about. I find that if you come prepared to someone that you're trying to win over to your
Okay.
side of
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
yeah, you're doing a pitch. If you come fully prepared and give them a solution to something that they're looking for, and this is design clients as well. But for the book, I was like, okay, I'm going to look into each one of these companies and figure out what little niche that they serve, first of all. And I wanted one that served designers and architects and builders and people who were giving a final product for home. But I also wanted to find a way in that they hadn't seen before. And so I wrote an entire chapter. I laid out the entire book. I did an entire pitch on what I would do for marketing, what I would do during the time, after the time, and how I would get the book sold because they're a publisher. They want to sell books. That's their job, right? They don't care how beautiful your book is. They want it to sell. And it was turned away by some. And then the one who I ended up working with, Gibbs Smith, they actually are the one that I was wanting to work with from the beginning because they have a lot of architects on there and designers that they work with, and they love to nurture that category. So Catherine Ireland has her book published through them, and I was like, oh, okay, I know who she is, and I was like, that's something. And then I started to look deeper and realized that they had other people that I recognized as well. But it wasn't like a slam dunk. It wasn't like here it is. Yes, there was a lot of back and forth, a lot of conversations with them. Still, again, the whole focus was telling them what I was going to do for them, not what they were going to do for me. I was going to do this for you. I'm going to do PR. I'm going to do marketing. And they ended up loving it. And so no agent, no any of those things, just had it reviewed by my attorney, the agreement. And I knew that. So my book's called The Designer Within. And again, my marketing cap came on. I'm like, okay, if I'm going to have a coffee table book out, I should piggyback off of that, have something else that also relates to that. So my first iteration of my courses were called The Designer Within Business. And that didn't really click with me. But then I was like, okay, the podcast. So the podcast is also called The Designer Within. Because I was just like, if I'm going to go through all this subterfuge to market my book, I also want to have some other form of marketing working at the same time from that, right? And it was a long process. It was 18-ish months, I would say, of from the minute I signed until the minute that we finished. And it was a lot of I would write something and then they assign an editor to you. And God bless my editor. She was great. She's 3 years though. And she, shout out to Madge, but she wasn't techie at all. And so it got a
Oh,
little cumbersome to be like, okay, that's just a PDF, But the flip side was she knew her stuff. And so she knew what would sell. She knew what would be the best way to lay out the book. And they hire an editor, a designer to work with you in addition to the editor to lay the book out in certain ways. And so her 50-year insight was actually invaluable to me at the end of the day because it actually helped the book become beautiful in the way that I wanted it to be. Something funny happened during the writing of that book. First of all, I started to write it from like a narcissistic point, and I'm just being honest. I was like, I'm a designer. I want a book. I want a coffee table book, right? That was where I came from. Then, as I was writing it, I was like, no, this cannot be about you. This has to be about something else. What is it going to be about? And so I called it The Designer Within because I want homeowners to look inside themselves and find the designer inside of them. And then I was like, let's just think about this. I was a 11, 12-year-old kid in the middle of Georgia with no means to design at all, like we're doing now. I would buy used magazines at yard sales and flea markets of This Old House and El Decor and all the things because I just loved pouring through those. And so I was like, you need to write this book to your 12-year-old self because that is the
mm,
person who is going to be the most interested in this. So I wrote it with my 12-year-old inquisitive mind, loving design, but not sure of how to make it come to fruition. And so I wanted it to help people. And once I flipped that switch and was writing it to that persona, it really did change the way the book was laid out. And the best compliment I ever get now that the book is out from people is, this sounds just like you. This sounds exactly like you would speak to me. And I'm like, that's what I wanted. I didn't want just a bunch of pretty pictures. I wanted ways to say, oh my God, that room is beautiful. How can I, in the middle of wherever, a tiny little town, bring a piece of that and put it into my home? And whether it's a metal finish, a metallic finish, or maybe they notice the way the furniture is laid out, whatever, I wanted every word in the book, including captions, to have takeaways for people to apply to their own homes. And I think that was the niche that this particular company was looking for when they were bringing on new people to publish books with.
I think that's part of how you've approached everything is thinking about it from the perspective of what the other person needs. And honestly, designers could get, that's why you're such a great coach is designers get so much from twist. I think we all have ego. We all have things in our head that we think about ourselves and we forget when that someone else has to be experiencing that. Someone else is experiencing that. And I'll tell you from just watching Instagram from its inception and watching designers, I would be like, oh, you're missing the opportunities here to talk to the person. Think about who your ideal client is and what they're thinking and what they're worried about and what they're frustrated about. And what I had no problem with getting interior designers to follow me. And I've had a lot of people say, how did you do that? How did you get a specific industry, a specific person? Because it's easy to like become an influencer really in different apps. If I wanted to do like a food app, there's just certain things that really translate like beauty, food. You can really get an audience, like a mass audience. You can get 1 million followers. And I think I could do that if I really wanted to set my mind to it and start it over, even from today where it's new. But I think that finding a specific person, like an interior designer, it's the same kind of problem as like a designer has, where they're trying to find a specific kind of client. They want someone who has the budget to do has a renovation project, is in their area, has the means to do that renovation project. But if you think of it, you know who that person is, what your client's worries, frustrations, fears, all of those things are. And even if you don't, like literally, you can ask ChatGPT. This is what this client is. This is what this client. Can you give me what their fears would be, what their frustrations would be? And then you're creating content that answers those. And I just know so few designers who market that way, who actually say, this is why I do this. And this is how I save my clients money. And this is how when I'm tackling this particular material, how I handle it so that I'm relieving my client of a worry of it cracking or breaking down the road. And this is why I picked this particular dishwasher, because this is why I like this brand. And how many Instagrams or TikToks or whatever have you seen beyond a pretty picture that is a designer saying what they like about what they do or what they don't like about what they do or how they work and how the process looks like. And I always think it's such a missed opportunity for designers because they're constantly just like profile picture and it's the portfolio there's only so many shots, right? So those are gone within a month. If you post it every single day, even if you've been working for 20 years, you really only want to use the last 5 years worth of projects. Like you've got maybe 50 pictures, 90 pictures at all. So that's one a day, that's 3 months. And then you're repeating but in there is a story. In every picture is something that you thought about while you were doing that nobody knows but you. So a person who's a big home decor or even interior design influencer who really doesn't design, we know that there's a lot of that out there too. Like they don't know those stories. They don't know why you chose the materials you chose behind you and what the art was about. And
okay, wait, I have to come to the rescue of the designers because
come to the rescue.
I have to because I think people think that we're not doing that arbitrarily or voluntarily. We don't have the time. Honestly, we are psychologists for our clients. So we're figuring out that project. We've got kids at home that we're trying to think for. Our partners or wives or husbands don't understand what we do. There is so much mental pull in terms of what it takes to mount up to do a project, right? So all that takes. And now we got to become these marketing mavens and completely think about something totally different to market to somebody out there in the ether that we don't even know. And it's just like
A lot.
yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It takes me hours to post about the project that I'm already working on. Like just to put a post up so that it resonates, because it's like that post will make sense to my client, but so that it will make sense to the Instagram world, it takes me forever just to do that. But then to try to post it and market it to who my ideal client might be. Oh my God, I can't even digest.
I think it's easier let me just say, I think it's easier than you think, Niall. I really do. I think if you had a process like John was talking about here, and I'm just going to throw it out there. Like, how many times have you been
I'm
on?
not a marketing person, but I don't,
But
so they don't they don't teach
great
but they don't
tools
teach
now.
marketing in design
No,
school.
no.
That's number one. So if you're expecting that from designers, then you're already putting us behind the 8 ball
Yeah.
because they don't teach, there's one business class in design school. And then we're not marketing professionals.
Yeah.
So that's the other part of it, I think the issue. And then we're trying to do on-the-job training, learning. You know what I'm saying? I
No.
think,
Oh, I know it. I know it's hard. I do. But I also know that the world has changed to that degree. That is what it takes to get to,
oh, I don't disagree with
you
that. I
know,
just think the perspective that we're not doing it is the wrong perspective.
I actually
We
am
would
going to
be,
have, do you remember how I always use her as an example, Erin Setzer home? Like, I did reach out to
yeah,
her and she is going to come on our podcast.
I love her. I adore
So
her.
we're going to be having her on because I just think, and John, do you cover this? Like how they can market, how they can make this, what steps to make this easier for them? Because is this something that you do within coaching too?
Yeah, of course. I love marketing and I love branding. I'm actually about to launch a new.
You're everywhere. So it's working. I'm telling you.
But Aaron Setzer has a team. But let's be clear, Aaron Setzer has a whole team.
Oh,
So
she
I want
does.
to know,
Yeah.
so then what do you say to the person who's by themselves, Laurie?
But
Like,
I don't have a team.
what do you say to that person who's just one person by themselves? Because I think that's what you're going to come up against. People are going to say to you, it's very easy for you to say, oh, just do it, market. But I run into the designers who say, yeah, but what am I supposed to do? It's just me.
Yeah.
and I'm a solopreneur. And so how do I get, there's so many hours in a day. How do I get that done?
That's a valid point, really
Yeah.
valid point. But what I tell people is, first of all, stop trying to be everything to everybody and stop trying to do every platform and stop trying to be Shay McGee or whomever that you're trying to be online. That's taken care of. She's there. She's her thing. Don't try to do that. And then also, just like we hold ourselves accountable to meetings with clients, I think we should schedule our own marketing meetings with ourselves. If you are a
Mm,
solopreneur, if you have another
that's
team
good.
member, and
Yes.
literally say, I have 2 hours today. It's Marketing Monday or whatever you want to call it. And then today's 2 hours to do this. I'm going to turn off the phone. I'm going to turn off the internet. I'm going to turn
Mm,
off my email and I'm going to hold myself accountable to that appointment with myself. Because what happens when we do something for
that's good.
ourselves, an email comes in like, oh crap, that contractor needs me or this
Yeah,
happened. And
push.
it takes your mind away from it. Our biggest downfall as solo entrepreneurs is that we do not hold ourselves accountable to our own meetings and we don't give those the same amount of respect as we
Mm,
do to people who are outside of our office or clients or tradespeople or contractors. We're ready to jump on everything to take care of their problem, but we don't hold ourselves accountable for our own appointments with ourselves to better our business. And it's, and
mm,
I'm going to piggyback on that for 1 second too. I also think that
yeah,
designers are, and this is just my own observations, they're very critical of themselves. And so they're
yes.
so afraid to make a mistake that they're in like analysis paralysis and will not go for it. And I think that can happen a lot too.
Having something done and imperfect is having better than having something not done and trying to wait on perfection to happen. So done to me is better than perfect. I know we're trying to be designers and we're trying to,
yeah, I've
we are
said this.
designers. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so you got the dichotomy of that. I've said this to Laurie before. You're asking a designer to just do it when we are in the profession, when literally our profession relies on beauty and perfection. So you got to make that math ain't mathing to me because you're saying, oh, just do it. And it's
You have
but
to
you're
understand, like
hiring me based, but
there's
they're hiring
testing.
me, but they're hiring me based on the perfect image, not based on the imperfect image. Let's be clear.
Yeah,
They at the
but they're gonna get you, right? No matter
but
what. And
but
you
the,
are part of the
but they
imperfect
don't.
image too.
Yeah,
You are part of that.
but they don't want me at the end of the day. Like when it's all said and done, they don't want Nile sitting in their house. They want the room, and they want it to look perfect. So
Sure.
that's really what they want.
Oh,
But do
of
they
So,
course,
care if
but
you, yeah,
of course,
but
but they're
go,
also understanding of what the process is and what when you're selling them on the whole thing, that you are part of that process. You are the person who knows this. And I think even the imperfect stuff tells them about that. It tells them, like, I can not even have the camera on me. I could be showing them something that I'm looking at at a store. And I'd be like,
yeah,
I really like that tile versus this tile. And the reason I do is because of blah, blah, blah. And only that information. And that's not perfect. It's not going to look perfect. You're in a tile store. It's not going to be, but I will tell you from production stamp, like there are actual marketing studies that show those imperfect videos that are real, that have authenticity, do better than the ones that are really polished. That if I was, just think about what if I was talking to you about tile, right? And I was like, look at this tile, Nile. I really like the colors. You see how the colors just like bounce, so the light bounces off of that tile. I love what that's doing to the room. And then I just see how this one's a little bit more flat and just doesn't. And now you're hearing that versus look at tile. These tiles are, you know how when you have like this pan and of the video pan and it's all production value looks so seamless, like it's an Apple commercial. People don't respond to that because we're so used to looking at ads now that we need that interrupter to say this is real advice versus this is just a commercial. And people love real advice. They love real advice. They love your
but real people.
by real people who know what they're talking about. And there's just a lot of people out there that don't have a point of view and that don't have that. And so designers to me have such a missed opportunity in that they have such a big opinion about so many things and they don't share it.
I think you have to. And this is the last thing I'll say too.
Yeah,
There's two
yeah.
things. I think one, but that's one of the reasons I marvel at what John did because He said after he made that big mistake the first time, he got in the car and he recorded all the things that he wasn't going to do and that he was going to do based off of the mistake. A lot of designers don't know that. Like a lot of designers will think it was the client. Like this went really bad. I think I'm still doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm either classically trained in school or I studied under somebody. I followed my process. They're wrong. I'm going to keep doing it this way. And then they keep making those same mistakes.
You're
It
right.
takes them a very long time before they realize that they're not. And that leads me to the next thing. If you're not sharing, you don't have a community of designers and you're not sharing, then you don't know because you don't have another designer saying, hey, no, it's actually you. And then you just have the issue where
I don't
it
think most
becomes,
designers would say that. That's the other thing is even your best friend designer is very unlikely to tell you it's you. You know what I mean? Because they don't want to hurt your feelings.
But
There's a
it's
lot
always
well,
us. It's always us. If there's a
well,
problem project, it's sorry, but it's always something we didn't do. And you can say, oh, no, I did it all. No, you missed a communication point. You missed an update. You missed something. You missed a
yeah,
meeting.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell my kids that all the time. I'm like, it went bad. You had whether it was 2% or 98%, you have some responsibility in it somewhere, right? They were mean to you. You probably knew not to be their friend, right? You shouldn't have been their friend in the first place. There's some responsibility there somewhere. So I totally agree with you, John. Like totally. I just think that everybody doesn't have that insight.
No,
And
they
so
don't.
then you
You're right.
spend so much time.
Yeah.
It's I don't know how we combat that. That's, I think, the biggest thing. Obviously, you coach with John, but how do you
I think you have to have some vulnerability. I think that people have to let go of maybe
I don't think
ego or
I
and
don't think
have
that's what
some
it is.
vulnerability.
I don't think that's what it is. I don't think this whole perfectionism thing, I think that exists. I do. But I don't think that's what that is.
I think we're very quick to say, oh, I missed a red flag, or that was a bad, or that client's just bad. And then we start, as designers, we have that tendency to commiserate with one another. Oh, tell me about your bad client, or tell me about how you had this situation happen, rather than being proactive and trying to fix the problem and looking at, again, what we did wrong or what went wrong in our process or what one
Yeah.
of our team members did incorrectly. We just start to commiserate with each other and then nothing gets solved. And then we're just like spinning in a circle talking about how bad that client was when in fact, and listen, if I can literally walk away from a project with an armed security guard and I had 6 figures of money, of my own money tied up into it, 6 figures, and I had zero money. If I can walk away from that and point the finger back at me, that anybody can always look at themselves and say, what can I do better in this next situation? What can I do
Yeah.
better with this next client? And it may come down to you had the wrong client. That may be the answer. You had the wrong client. You do not know your ideal client. Not you now, but I'm saying in general.
No,
Yeah,
yeah.
in general, people, they may have had the wrong client. They may have had the absolute, because I've done that before where no matter what you do, nothing is progressing in the way that you want it to be. And it may come down to the fact that you need to analyze who you are working with and maybe pivot and work with someone differently next time and say no to the person with that personality who is not going to change, who is going to be rigid in the way that they stand and require you and ask you to do things outside of your process.
Mhm.
Find another client, move on. And then that might sound I know that's a whole other path to follow, like finding the other client. But if you put yourself out there authentically, and I know that word's overused, but anyway, if you put yourself out there being your true self on social
Yeah.
media, in-person meetings all the time, what I find is you become a magnet, and then those people come to you in all different ways. The right clients come to you, the right trades come to you, the right architects come to you, the right associations to be involved
Mhm.
with somehow find their way to you. Early on, I would go to clients' houses and I'm like, oh, I can't, okay, I got to be very, quote, straight. I got to be the straight man here. I can't pretend I'm gay. No, there's no way. I can't talk about my husband. I can't talk about my life. And then I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why
Mhm.
this is like my first couple of years in business. Why am I trying to be something that I'm not in order to make them happy? Because they're going to see me as somebody false and I'm not going to be that person. And then one day I'm going to be my real true self. And then they're going to say, who are you? You weren't this person when we did our consultation. So I let the guard down and just became me. Everything I do is me with every client. And I'm like, yep, I do this. And this is the way I handle the process. And I have corny jokes and all the things. But if you don't like it, then we're probably not going to jive and we're probably not going to work well together. But if you do, You're my people, and we're going to go all the way to the finish line successfully. And that's in all aspects of business and all aspects of life, really. Like, you don't want to
Yeah,
hang
yeah,
out
yeah.
with a bunch of people that aren't your people. You hang out. Who do you go have a cocktail with or jump on a group text with? Your people, right? So always find your people, and no matter what you do in your business is my little 2 cents.
Yeah, I
So
love
maybe
that.
that's the key. Maybe that is the key. Knowing, it sounds to me like you have to really know yourself.
Yeah.
And then in turn, that sort of helps you navigate what you will and won't tolerate and stand for and even market to, quite frankly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why
You got to
not?
stand for
That
something.
ultimately, that's what it sounds like.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
Or then you become, if you don't, you become this watered down version of yourself, and you start to look like every other person on social media, or you start to sound like every other person in at an event at High Point, for instance, or whatever. You want to find something that makes you just let people stop the scroll on your phone. You stop the scroll, and oh wow, that's something totally different. Like Lori was saying, oh my God, that's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
perspective. Like, you do the same
Yeah.
thing in person. You can do the same thing in person, and that's the key. Is once you are yourself, there are no other people. There are no other yous. You are you. And when you find that way to truly be yourself in all atmospheres and all events of life, then I just find out, again, you're a magnet, and the right people just like gravitate towards you. And that's been the biggest game changer in my business, was learning to who I was, what I stood for, what I was not going to bend on, what I was able to negotiate, where I would allow things to change. And then once I did that, it was just like a huge game changer. I don't think I would have gotten my book deal. I don't think I would have gotten a product line. I don't think I would have gotten certain clients that I've gotten, wouldn't have met people in the industry like you guys if you had not if I had not been myself. So I just encourage everybody to try to not be a clone of other people, try to find out what makes you unique. And there's so many things that make you unique. There's so many things that make us who we are, that are like diamonds sparkling. Really, they are. And we just tend to not give them enough credit for being special enough, I'm afraid.
I think that's true, and
That
I think
is
that's so
so
great.
true. That is so true. So that's like what Wendy said, Lori, when she said, if you're always following somebody else's process or somebody else's swag, basically, you're gonna always be playing catch up. You will always be playing. And I thought that was so profound, that you will always be playing catch up if you're using someone else's process or their whole persona. It's
Yeah,
just a game
I
of
mean,
catch up forever.
and I think
Yeah.
that's easy to do. So that's great advice, John. I really appreciate
It's
it.
really
I
good
know we're
advice.
over in time, but this was
Sorry.
such a
I love it.
this was such an important conversation, and I think that every designer needs to listen to this, because it's like an eye-opening experience to
Yeah.
learn just all the steps that you took and how it can really impact their business today. And just even that last bit, that's was incredibly powerful to me, because that's what I think, is that are so many designers, and every time I meet them, I am like, I love their process and I love who they are. And I think that they're so cool. And then I look at their Instagram or their TikTok and I'm like, okay, where is that person that I know, that I love, that I think is so great?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't see it. And
Yeah.
portfolio images don't show that. Don't show who you are and your opinions and how you do what you're doing. And to me, that's the exciting stuff. That's just the exciting
It is.
stuff that that's what I would want to watch. That's what I
Yeah.
would want to experience. I would think your clients would want that too, because that
Well,
tells them a little bit about how it's going to be to work with you.
I hate going to a website and it's whatever, Sarah Jane Design or whatever. And then you go there, where's Sarah Jane? She's not even on her website. Like, is she
Oh,
even?
Yeah.
I hate that too. And I'll go like on a rabbit, like a hunt to try to
Oh my
find who the
goodness.
person is.
Is that
Yeah.
terrible? Like,
So
That
many
is terrible.
times I looked
I'll
at
be
websites
Googling
and I'm
like,
like, sometimes it doesn't say where they are.
own it. Like, I'll leave you with this.
You're in Philadelphia. Like, it should say that you're in Philadelphia.
What I say is,
yes, that too.
when you figure out who you are and who you want to serve, you know that phrase, always be selling, right? Which I hate, but it's true. I flipped it to call it autopilot selling. And because if you really know who you are, it's on autopilot. You don't have to fake it. You don't have to force it. You don't have to push it. It is literally on autopilot. And everywhere you go, whether it's talking to your friends or your family or an industry event, you are just you, because you know who you are, and it's running in the background on autopilot, and you never have to stop and second guess yourself or think about something that you
Should I
said.
say this to this client? This is
Yes,
not my
yes,
personality. Like, I
yes.
put on the
Be the
voice.
same. Put it on autopilot. Be the same to everybody, everywhere. Because what if you were different to your friend and you spoke differently to them about your company? What if you like said some negative things about your company to your friend or something that you were doing and you really, that friend knew someone who could be a good client for you. And then suddenly, what do they think about? Oh God, he said that he really screwed up that project or whatever. So come up with a way to put your best self forward, but also be authentically yourself to everybody that you surround with, because you should be the best representation of your business
Even
everywhere.
yourself, like even the way you talk about
Yeah.
yourself matters to yourself. Like it's
Yeah.
that is the mindfulness thing. Even if you're like, oh, that's not going terribly. That actually impacts how you think of you.
100%. Couldn't have said that better.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
true. So true.
The same, John.
That's scary.
Everyone for listening, and make sure you definitely go over to John's site and listen to The Designer Within and buy his book and find out everything about his coaching because he's just fantastic. We love you,
Listen to
John.
this. Thanks for having me on. Love you guys.
Thanks.